Hey, what's up YouTube? It's Roan for Roan's Pro Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm here with my first video on my new YouTube channel. You can hit me up on this channel at youtube.com/RoansProYuGiOh. I'm going to give you guys a deck profile for my deck that I'm going to be playing this format, which is Frog Monarchs, for those who don't know. Just going to go through the deck real fast, the extra deck, the side deck, and give some kind of explanations on choices I've made and stuff like that. So, let's get started. First up, monsters. Got 2 Light and Darkness Dragon, 3 Caius, 2 Mobius, 2 Ryza, 2 Vanity's Fiend, Dark Dust Spirit, 3 Swap Frog, 2 Treeborn, 1 Fishborg Blaster, 3 Battle Fader, Gores, Tragodia, of course, staples in this kind of deck, 2 Effect Veiler, and Sangan. Now, as you can see, I have quite a few tributes in this deck. Get up in there close on them for you. But you know, in a deck like this, it's pretty much what the deck does. So you have to have a lot of tributes, but you don't have too many to where you're going to get dead draws in your hands. So let's go through and kind of talk about some of the choices I've made and why I decided to play these cards. Light and Darkness, this has been a staple in Frog Monarch decks for as long as they've been around. I don't really think I need to explain that. Or Caius. Caius is the same thing. Mobius, I actually, on a whim, decided to include this. I didn't really have any inkling before I started playing the deck to play the card, but the more I played the deck, the more I realized it was going to be really valuable, this format, because this whole format's going to be nothing but traps, with, you know, the limiting of Book of Moon and stuff like that. So, being able to potentially steal your opponent's creature with an Econ or a Soul Exchange and sack it off for Mobius, effectively wiping out 3 of their cards, is really, really plusy. Mobius has always been a good card, but in Frog Monarch decks he's been kind of overlooked in the past format or two because it hasn't been as useful. But this format, especially with the way that I've built the deck, I think Mobius is going to be really, really important, and we'll get to more on that later. Ryza, that's another standard thing. Some people might question why I'm only running 2. I wanted to play 2 Mobius instead of 1 Mobius and 3 Ryza, so I just decided to drop one of the Ryzas for Mobius. Vanity's Fiend. I am in love with this card. It's so easy, so incredibly easy to get this card out on the first turn, and it shuts down so many decks. And with Book of Moon being at 1 now, the only other out most decks have to Vanity's Fiend is Dark Hole, and who wants to waste a Dark Hole on 1 Vanity's Fiend, you know? But I mean, you get this out against Plants, or Sabers, or, heaven forbid, 6 Samurai, what are they going to do? They have no outs to it. They just sit there, and you beat on them over and over and over again. It's a great card. Dark Dust Spirit, this has always been another staple in Frog Monarch decks. I'm not too fond of the card. I think it's kind of risky, especially if you don't draw into like a Gores, Trago, or Battle Fader to combo with it. But, you know, I'm trying it out. Other things, the Swap Frogs. Swap Frog, Treeborn, Fishborg. Obviously, you have to have all these cards. This is the deck. Without Treeborn, you can't do anything, really. Fishborg, I'm only playing Fishborg at 1. I noticed that I was playing at 2 for a while, and I noticed that at 2 it was dead a lot, and while it did let me combo with Swap Frog by discarding it to send Treeborn or whatever I wanted monster-wise, having 2 in hand sometimes was terrible, and I would much rather have an extra Monarch, which is what I did actually. I dropped one of the Fishborgs for another Monarch. But, yeah. So, other choices. Everything else over here is pretty standard. I mean, 3 Battle Fader, like, yeah, you know, that's not 3 Battle Fader, that's a Battle Fader and 2 DD Crow, but I'm practicing right now because I don't have the other 2 Battle Faders yet. But I'm supposed to be getting them soon. Gores and Trago, that's another obvious thing. Who doesn't play this in Frog Monarchs? Sangan and the 2 Effect Veilers, however, are kind of meta calls, or I guess you could call them meta calls. What I think is going to be big this format. Searchers are going to be huge because this is an attack format. It's going to be all about effect monsters and pushing damage through, so if you can set a creature like a Sanguine and get a free plus off of it, it's great. Especially in this deck when you have things like Econ and Soul Exchange where you can sacrifice Sanguine and potentially one of their creatures, or even just sack it off for Econ, get a search, take their creature, sack it for a Monarch, and then, you know, it's replaced itself. It's broke. 2 Effect Veiler, again, I think this is going to be another meta-defining card. I touched on this a little bit in one of my articles on the blog. With all the trap stuns going to be flying around, like, without a Effect Veiler in hand, if somebody trap stuns you, you're pretty much screwed. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Effect Veilers in decks, mostly at 1, but I think some people will play it at 2. And in my deck, I can get away with playing 2. So I decided to play 2. Alright, let's move on to the Magic and Trap. This is all pretty standard, but I'm going to go through it anyway. Start off, got 3 Enemy Controller, of course. 2 Soul Exchange. 2 Noblemen of Extermination. Foolish Burial. Pot of Avarice. And then Monster Reborn and Dark Hole. So, again, spell lineup is not that unique. The only thing really that I could pick up on and kind of point out to you guys is the Noblemans here. That's kind of an odd main deck choice, but the way that I'm playing the deck is kind of different. And, you know, this being a trap-heavy format, Noblemen of Extermination is going to be really, really good. So, yeah, that's the Magic. And then, finally, this is going to be really easy, the traps. I'm running 3 trap stuns. So, now if you think back on the deck list and what I've shown you so far, this will probably make a lot more sense, because say I set this and I have a Treeborn engraved. Well, if I trap stun on their standby phase, I can still bring out my Treeborn. So I'll bring out my Treeborn and then sacrifice Treeborn for Mobius if I have it, or I can just Nobleman of Extermination one of their back rows and not have to worry about them chaining it, because they can't chain it when trap stun's active. Also, this deck is very, very vulnerable to Solemn Warning, so being able to stop Solemn Warning is crucial.